Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and attention coach, 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒, and I'm here to talk to you about things that kind of make sense, but they don't really work. There's a ton of that in the ADD world. Let's talk about that. Most people, they don't want to acknowledge that ADHD is an impairment. My eyesight is impaired, and thus I wear glasses as an accommodation in order for me to read to achieve my potential. So much of the stuff out there is kind of glassed over and not kind of acknowledged as an impairment. And furthermore, people don't really understand executive functions as a collection of mind tools that are used to construct a plan or problem solve. So what does this mean in reality? I was approached by an organization that wanted me to advertise on my podcast, and they claimed that they have an ADD-friendly app because it was very visual. Now, we know people with ADHD struggle with visual imagery, which is in executive functions, to be able to see the future, or see the past, or see things. And things that are visual can be very beneficial for them, because they're not actually having to think inside their head. However, the app was built for the phone. Now, this is hard for me to describe. If you go back and you search Attention Talk Video working memory, you'll find a lot. I talk a lot about working memory. Working memory is what you use inside your head to problem solve. And the challenge of working memory is it has a limited capacity. And so there's this concept called toggling, where you are looking at a screen and you click on something to go to another screen while holding information from the first screen in your mind to another screen. It's hard to describe in this short video, but when you're holding information in your mind and there's instructions that are going through your mind, as you look for additional information to reconcile it, that increases the burden or the load on your working memory, and often you don't have the capacity for it, and it just evaporates, and you find yourself going back and forth, which leads me to a Thomas Brown quote many years ago. He said, it's like kind of like watching a basketball game through a telescope. If you think about that, in the stands, you're looking at a telescope, and you might see a 3-inch section of the floor, and when basketball players run by, you might see a flash of like a shadow, but you don't really know what's going on. It's because you need a bigger picture of what's going on. And so my point really is I've had some requests, I think Don out there and a few others, about productivity apps. And so on paper, they sound really, really, really good, but all too often I find that the app itself is taxing your working memory and creating a little bit of a problem. Now, that's not to say there's not helpful productivity apps that are out there, but it really depends on the individual and what you're using it for and your own individual behavior. What's been frustrating for me is there's such things as professional organizers. They'll come into your home and they'll organize your physical space, but I've yet to find a digital organizer to be able to help you organize your digital information. Why? Because I think that's a hell of a lot more complicated than a physical space. So the point really here is there's a lot of things out there that sound really, really good, but they don't actually work. And usually for people with ADHD, it's for a cognitive reason, an executive functioning impairment. And a lot of times it's a thinking issue. The idea here really is if you're going out there and you're trying to find something to help you, by and large, most people don't see ADHD as a thinking impairment, but it actually is. The idea is, how can I make thinking easier? If you go at it with that mindset, you're more apt to find something that's going to work for you, as opposed to just grabbing an app and diving into it, having the assumption that it's going to take care of it. That's not a tip, trick, or strategy, which most of you guys want. It's helping you begin to problem solve, to wade yourself through all the stuff that kind of sounds like it makes some sense, but it doesn't actually work. Anyway, I'm hoping this gives you pause to thought, think, and maybe sometimes spend a little bit more time as opposed to just jumping to the first thing that comes at you. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're an existing person, please, thoughts on this. Does it make sense to you? Particularly in the context of working memory for the people that have seen those videos. Also, we do what we do for you. Hitting the thanks button, any contribution would certainly be appreciated and very motivating. So with that, we hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching this edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.